We've all been there. You're going to end your epic solo with a huge soaring bend, and then this happens. The bend completely falls apart, unwanted string noise everywhere. What do? We're always told that muting is an essential part of string bending. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at what your fretting hand and picking hand need to specifically do in order to get your bends to sound like this. String muting on guitar is a team effort between both of your hands. I wish somebody would have told me this when I was growing up playing guitar. Your picking hand and your fretting hand are responsible for muting completely different string sets. Let's start off by talking about the role of the fretting hand. The fretting hand is going to be responsible for muting the adjacent strings. What do I mean by that? Adjacent means right next to, right? So if I'm bending the first string, my fretting hand is going to be responsible for muting the strings right next to it, which will be in this case the second string, okay? And if I was going to be on the second string, my fretting hand is going to be responsible for, again, the adjacent strings. In this case, it's going to be the first string and the third string. Okay, there's a couple of things, like let's take a look at me bending the second string right here. There's a couple of things that I do to mute these adjacent strings. What I do is you'll see all of my fingers are kind of at a slight angle right here. And what I'm doing is I'm making contact with the first string, allowing me to mute that. But also, often overlooked is my index finger. You know, I always reinforce my bends to get strength of vibrato, okay? But my index finger is a little bit offset, if you can see that right here. And I'm lightly touching that third string ever so slightly. So as a result, I'm muting my first string and my third string with my fretting hand. If I were to bend the third string, what you'll notice is that my ring finger is now slightly touching the second string. My index finger has moved up a string set, and again, I'm muting the fourth string. So once again, I'm muting the adjacent strings with my fretting hand. Now, often overlooked when it comes to string bending is the role of the picking hand. My picking hand needs to be all over the guitar, and essentially all of the other strings, all of the other non-adjacent strings that aren't being muted with my, my fretting hand are the responsibility of my picking hand. So let's go to this first string bend right now. What you'll notice is my picking hand is now all over the guitar. Okay, so my picking hand is going to be muting 6, 5, 4, and 3, and my fretting hand is responsible for muting the second string. So in theory, what I can do is I can play all 6 strings, and the only string that rings out is the one I'm bending, if I do it correctly. That's how you can get those epic soaring, classic rock David Gilmour bends, okay? Now, why doesn't my picking hand want to mute the second string? Now let's try, see what happens. If I go all the way down and try to mute the second string, what you'll notice is as I bend the note up, my note is dead. So that's why the picking hand is only responsible for muting the adjacent strings. So remember, fretting hand, adjacent strings, picking hand, everything else. You can't use your picking hand to mute the adjacent strings because you're going to run into the bend. The bend will die out, right? Like I just demonstrated. So using this concept, I'm able to figure out just by what open string I hear ring out, whether you have poor fretting hand muting or poor picking hand muting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate poor muting, okay? And we're first going to start off with poor, fretting hand muting. So fretting hand, again, responsible for adjacent strings. Let's take a listen to poor fretting hand muting. What you hear is you hear that third string ring out. Next, what I'm going to demonstrate is poor picking hand muting. Take a listen to this. What you hear now is that D string ring out. Half of implementing this information here is just being aware of it. So next time you do a failed string bend, what I want you to do is see if you can stop and hear what string is ringing out. And As a result of that, you're going to be able to tell whether you need to work on your fretting hand muting or picking hand muting. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.